And having done technical difficulties, I'm now going to hand over to Kat for the plot difficulties and introduce us to this week's episode. So take it away, Kat.
Right, tonight's episode is Season 2, Episode 10, Sanctuary, which was first broadcast on the 29th of November 1993. Courtesy of Wikipedia, I'm going to give you a plot summary now so that you'll know what the heck is going on as we tear each scene apart. A damaged vessel comes through the wormhole and its passengers, a woman and 3 men, are transported aboard Deep Space Nine. The Universal Translator is unable to translate their language for several minutes, but they seem to trust Major Kira, who escorts them around the station until they are able to communicate. The woman, Hanik, explains that her people, the Skreanns, were conquered by a species called the Tarogarans, who were, in turn, conquered by an empire known as the Dominion. Commander Sisko promises to help Hanik and her people find a new homeland, and when several more Skreann ships come through the wormhole, they are welcomed warmly. Kira and Hanik become friends. As more and more Skreanns arrive at the station, some residents, including Quark, begin to resent their presence. Quark's nephew, Nog, pulls a prank on Hanik's belligerent son, Tumak, and Tumak retaliates with violence. The situation deteriorates into a violent scuffle between Nog and Tumak's group of friends. Hanik begins to fear that she will not find Kentanna, the Skreanns' long-sought-after legendary homeworld. However, the Skreann leaders decide that Bajor is the Kentanna they seek. Sisko suggests a nearby planet, Draylon 2, as a reasonable alternative, but the Skreanns are adamant in their decision. They meet with representatives of the Bajoran government, who refuse to allow them to relocate there. A famine is spreading, and the Bajoran government does not believe it can support the Skreann population. Tumak takes one of the Skreann ships and heads to Bajor. At Sisko's request, Hanik tries to convince him to disengage his engines because the ship has a dangerous radiation leak, but Tumak ignores his mother's pleas. 2 Bajoran vessels approach him in order to tow him to safety, but Tumak refuses to shut down his engines. A firefight ensues, resulting in the destruction of Tumak's ship due to the radiation leak. The Bajoran government maintains its decision to refuse asylum, so the Skreanns have no choice but to move to Draylon 2. Hurt over her son's death and angry with the Bajorans, Hanik's final words to Kira are bitter. She reminds Kira that the Skreanns were farmers and could have helped Bajor overcome the famine. Hanik departs with her people, leaving Kira ashamed, contemplating Hanik's words. Now, as a content warning for this episode,
Yes, please, Kat.
This episode is the story of an oppressed people seeking a place to live, but specifically they're doing so in the belief that they have an ancient promised homeland, and they identify this homeland on a planet which is already populated by another recently oppressed people. It's a deeply serious and highly emotive subject, and I think we'll see in the course of discussing this episode that the belief in that right to an ancient homeland is an issue that the writers of the episode themselves are kind of unwilling to interrogate directly on its own terms, probably because of how live and serious that belief was when this episode was written, and still is for people today. While I usually like to offer my own inexpert thoughts about the cultural context of Deep Space Nine episodes in terms of both when they were written and now, I can't claim enough expertise and informed sensitivity to address real-world ongoing events wherein a lot of people are being killed and which have only some similarities to the story of this episode. So the sensible and responsible thing for me to do will be to steer away from comparing this story with any historical or current real-world events. And where we do discuss ethics, I'm going to limit my discussion to the content of the episode itself and to examples from our own culture, which we do have the knowledge to speak to. Looking into Memory Alpha, it sounds as if the writers of the episode didn't have any specific real-world allegory in mind when they wrote it. It's a refugee story to them, so we can take it on that basis. Otherwise, there's relatively little in terms of content warnings. There are some hand-to-hand scuffles in which nobody is seriously injured, and as you've heard in the episode summary, a young man takes possession of a ship, which is then shot down. Just to add that the episode was directed by Les Landau, the story is written by husband and wife writing team, Gabe Esso and Kelly Miles, and the teleplay is by Frederick Rappaport. Thank you as always to Wikipedia, to the Star Trek Minutia website for the full shooting script, and to TrekCore for the screenshots, some of which we'll be showing you as we go.
Fantastic. Well delivered, Kat. Thank you very much. Yes, we will not dwell on any potential allegories or real world situations you can link to because we're a couple of friends drinking wine and discussing a 30-year-old TV show. We're not pundits on a geopolitical news show. There are some things we just don't want to touch, and I trust you appreciate why, and we will treat this with all due discretion, as we do always.
I would also like to
Mm.
add that the temperatures here in the UK are hot. It's nearly 30 degrees. We're in the north of England. We're not accustomed to it. So I'm aware that I've been stumbling over my words more before this evening, just in the last few days. So if I'm even less fluent than I usually am, please feel free to put it down to the heat and not to the vast quantities of wine I'm using to cool myself down.
I like it. It's the joy of the Twitch stream is that you see us unedited, unfiltered, and occasionally incoherent. That is the risk and the reward you take by joining us on our live streams. So, Kat, rest assured, it is no judgment from this community of friends right here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you everyone in chat. We hope you are keeping safe and cool in this weather to which we are not accustomed nor really set up to deal with or manage.
Mm.
With a lot of caretaking out of the way, let's get into it. As always, I like to kind of get some initial impressions at the start before we dig through the scenes we like, and then go for a roundup. And I guess I just wanted to come in, kind of put some of my thoughts down, get yours, Kat. Which is, I thought there was an interesting concept here that they just did not seem to get to grips with at all. I don't know if the story was chopped down extensively. It feels like the skeleton of a story with some bits missing. My impression throughout all of this was they want us to have this scene, and then this scene, and then this scene. And they had set pieces they wanted to go through, and very little connecting tissue to get us there. There wasn't much of the world building, which we both enjoy. I didn't feel like we got any background in Skreann culture beyond, the very limited Planet of Hats style trope approach. It just felt so bereft of actual content. A lot of it rested on the, thankfully, capable shoulders of the actors, both regular and guest. Um, but this felt for such a sadly evergreen topic and such a hot topic in general that they just didn't do it justice. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was there. So
Mm.
I came away from this episode a little bit underwhelmed, a little bit confused, and a little bit disappointed. So I'm very keen to see if you know, your views on it and those of chat kind of agree with mine or go in other directions. So that's my kind of off the top. Please do share yours with us.
Yeah, I think unusually I probably didn't dislike this one as much as you did. I do think though that it really suffered for the 45-minute episode, having to be so damn short. This
Mm.
was a story that could well have been told over multiple episodes, but they wanted
Mm.
to get the emotional stings in. They wanted a
Yes.
catastrophe and an ending. So I think there is a lot to like in this episode. I think it tries to broach lots of different aspects of the refugee experience, the
Mm.
experience of people who are being asked
Yeah.
if refugees can move in to live with them. And there are lots of nice moments between a very good cast. I really like the guest actors in
Yeah.
this one. I think
Same.
that they match very well with the standard actors
Mm.
from the show that they have scenes with. But yeah, I feel that for that time constraint, they just didn't have time to do any of the issues that they were raising full justice. And I feel that the argument that the episode ultimately relies on for the Bajoran to refuse asylum to the Skreans is a very weak argument, and it's a
Mm.
weird argument. I'll go
Mm.
into it when we get to it.
Mm.
But yeah, I have beef with the argument the Bajorans are making, and I think there are many other arguments they could have made which would have made their point far
Okay.
better.
Mm.
So yeah, I think there is definitely something of the episode has been rewritten. Apparently, the ending was originally a happy one, where the fact that they were farmers it was going to be justification
Mm.
for them moving to Bajor. Bajor was going to welcome the Skreans
Mm.
because they could have helped with the famine.
Mm.
But the guy writing the screenplay felt that no, we need a sad ending for this one, so they have to refuse them, and the grounds on which they refuse them are just not sufficient for me. So yeah, it feels quite uneven, I think, but I found
Mm.
the
Mm.
episode entertaining throughout. I didn't feel bored. I didn't feel that it lagged at any point. I think it's got consistently good drama and dialogue.
Mm.
But yeah, it's taken on a bit more than it can chew. I think it just doesn't have the space to expand upon the very important and, as you say, constantly evergreen, unfortunately, topics that it raises. It could have done better justice to the issues that it broaches. But it's something that Star Trek does. They like to raise very difficult human ethical issues which are relevant to people today. And it often ends up resolving them with space magic. In this case, I don't think they rely on space magic, but they do rely on very poor debating skills. I think they probably needed someone else to look over it and go, no, actually, you need to resolve it this way instead.
Interesting. So we do have different views on this, and I will be very keen to get to that point.
Let's see which one wins as we go through it.
Oh, crumbs! I don't know if I have the energy to fight my corner that strongly, Kat. I'm willing to concede in advance. But I think we are both agreed that the concept just wasn't done justice, and I think, and in chat as well, I could see Lieutenant or Cat saying, this could have easily been a two-parter, and I could absolutely see that. It would have been very rewarding to have gotten more detail across the board on the people involved, the challenges, how it could have been resolved, all of that. It could have been done better justice with more space, but I do feel the intention was to ramp up to that, and we couldn't save the day, which I appreciate in this episode that seems out of place, but Deep Space Nine has been experimenting with what if we didn't solve the problem, and we've done it in other episodes, which I found a refreshing change to TNG's Enterprise to the rescue. But yeah, the whole thing felt to me like they were just ramping up towards that, and they were like, "Haha, we know exactly what we're going to say right at the end, and we've just got to get there in 45 minutes," as you said, victim of that episodic nature of storytelling. We will have to pick this thing apart now and see how we feel it kind of went. So, and I do wonder if now is the time that we quickly acknowledge that Morn was inspired by Norm of Cheers fame, and I believe I'm recalling this correctly. The actor who played Norm recently passed away, so I wonder if this is a time to just acknowledge very quickly that
George Wendt.
George Wendt, thank you. George Wendt, who sadly passed away in May 20th this year. So just time to say thanks, for being the inspiration for a character that Kat is only just discovering is quite beloved in universe and out. So thanks, George Wendt, for making the mold for such a lovely character. Let me just pop that picture on screen of him as well. There he is with Quark. I like that Quark has to slightly raise himself up to look at Morn because he is a little bit shorter behind the bar. But there he is.
I also noticed for the first time that Morn's suit looks like one of those body armor plates that people sometimes put under t-shirts to make themselves look more buff than they are. It just makes him look like he's got huge pecs and abs. And I've got no idea why they went with that. But for some reason it works. Maybe it's, again, part of his riz.
The man's got epic space drip. Respect. Okay, right. I've spoken enough young for a while. Let's crack right along, shall we, Kat? Yeah, the biggest stumbling block, which again is such an exciting possibility. The Universal Translator is having trouble. It has It's so exciting because everyone takes it so much for granted.
That as a plot point.
I loved it.
Kira has to ask around the room, can anyone else tell what they're saying? Because she doesn't know if the problem is with her.
Yeah.
But no, the Universal Translator, for possibly the first time in their lives, except for the episode where everyone develops aphasia and starts speaking in random words. So we have seen something a little like this before. But yeah, the Universal Translator cannot translate their language because they've only just come through the wormhole, and there is no history, there's no etymology, there's no cultural history of these people from which the translator can work. So of course it just doesn't offer any translation at all for many minutes of the episode, which I like that. I really like that they introduced that because it makes complete sense, I think, given the lack of the shortfalls of the technology.
It's an exciting kind of challenge to the plot, and it sort of makes sense. I mean, we have met other cultures from the Gamma Quadrant. We've met Tosk and we've met the Wadi, so we know about Third Chap.
Yeah, that's very true.
But we've not met many, so I can imagine that we are truly
It's a
meeting.
good point. We might have encountered this problem before had they thought enough about it.
So it does sort of, in
So,
universe, it
yeah,
sort of falls down
kudos
like.
to Frederick Rappaport or to the original writers who decided that should happen here. It makes a lot of sense.
It's
Um,
exactly. And if you will indulge me for a few minutes, I want to go off on something I've often had a problem with, which is that
so,
I don't understand why Starfleet hasn't thought of this. This is the most forward-facing outpost in the entire Federation. It will meet cultures never before encountered in the Alpha Quadrant. So why in God's name don't they have a dedicated first contact team, a accredited ambassador, somebody who can absolutely do this? Now I know that's because that's great stuff to give to the cast, and the script writers love it. But in universe, it makes no sense at all. And I'm going to draw a parallel here, which I also had a problem with when I watched a little show called Babylon 5. Was that Babylon 5 plays host to a diplomatic conference of all the major races of the galaxy, and every race sends an ambassador. Even the Vorlons send an ambassador, which they very rarely do. And humanity sends a military officer, not an ambassador, a soldier in uniform. There is no human ambassador on Babylon 5.
good
And
point.
because they want to give that character something to do in a bit of conflict. If they were an accredited ambassador, everything would be very polished and, oh, very good, yes, 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 and there'd be no conflict. But it makes no sense in universe. Deep Space Nine should be bursting at the seams with sociologists and ambassadors and
Linguists. Strange New
everything.
Worlds has Uhura be a linguist in the days before the Universal Translator was developed. Surely someone in
Mm-hmm.
Starfleet would have recognized that people arriving from a different quadrant whose linguistic roots we've never encountered before would need someone to try and work out what the
Oh,
syntax was, to help
a
program the
whole
computer,
team.
to work out
Yes.
how to translate to them with gestures, with pictograms, with anything before the language can kick in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does feel as if the Deep Space Nine writing crew are flying by the seat of their pants here. No one has thought about it before for Star Trek,
Absolutely not.
and they're just inventing stuff as they go along,
This is
which
it.
then gets retro invented for Star Trek: Strange
Sure.
New Worlds.
Exactly. Tell you what. Let's say we've always done it like that, and thus we find the crew themselves flying by the seat of their pants. Universal Translator doesn't work, and it's quite clear nobody in Ops knows what the fuck to do. And I'm like, this is technically first contact, right? This is meant to be everything this show is about. It is meant to be everything you have trained your lives for to work in this highly elite professional situation, organization that is Starfleet. This should be your bread and butter. You don't know what to do. Why don't you know what to do?
To their credit, at least, no one pulls a phaser on them. It could have been far worse.
Yeah, it could have been the
I mean,
Klingons
imagine
or
if
the
they landed in
Romulans.
various countries in the world
That's
today.
a very good point. That is a very, very
Let's
good
not
point.
touch that point again. That's far too miserable. But yeah, it could have gone so much better if they'd actually thought about what would be required aboard the first station the new species are going to make contact with.
So yeah, this is it. For the purposes of making an entertaining TV show, I understand it. In universe, it makes no sense at all. But thank you for indulging me. Kat, please
Yeah.
take us on.
I had a complaint that was far, far less reasonable than yours, which is, once again, the humanoids! The humanoids, you know where the face is. You know what their facial expressions
Mhm,
mean.
mhm,
You know what their tone of voice means immediately.
mhm,
You know whether they're holding themselves in a defensive or an attack posture.
mhm,
Everything about them screams that they're from Earth. And it
mhm.
wouldn't be like that. They would have weird ass anatomies. We wouldn't know which bit of them was expressing anything at
So
all.
true.
They might be a gas creature. They might be a hyper intelligent shade of the color blue. We should have
Nice guide
absolutely no
reference.
idea
Mm.
what these people are saying, which bit of them is which, how many of them there are, just a jumbled up mess of limbs that we don't recognize. But you can't because it's 45 minutes and you've got a story to tell. So they've got to be played by humans on a shoestring budget. So instead we get humans with slightly flaky skin.
And it's a shame because once or twice they have done it. I'm thinking of the Tholians from the original series, who we only see as kind of like pointy crystalline creatures on the screen. And later on, I can't remember if it's Strange New Worlds or Lower Decks, but the Tholians are actually kind of like giant crystal spiders. They have like 8 legs and
Oh,
central
that's cool.
bodies. It's great. And God, what was? There's a TNG race that is very unusual life form. Oh, I can't remember anything about them.
I mean, I'm
They're
thinking of the fish
non-humanoid.
people as being vaguely non-humanoid
The
in that they've got giant
Antidians.
fish-like head, but that's just two Earth species shoved together.
So there are attempts, but I think in all of these examples they've been very limited because exactly one, it's hard to get an audience to relate to them, and two, they're damn expensive to animate. So there are many obstacles, and three, we have TNG The Chase, which I mention every time, was Star Trek's in-universe attempt to explain why every single human race that we meet is a bipedal humanoid. The Chase is all about a progenitor race that seeded DNA across the galaxy, creating many, many, many races that all look the same. And at the culmination of the discovery of this information, the Klingon warrior who has joined this chase for this revelation information says, "If she were not millions of years dead, I would have shot her myself." And I just think, yeah, I get it. I get it. This whole episode is just a way to explain why everybody in the Star Trek universe is just a human with a bumpy forehead.
It's terrible.
It's
It's
dreadful.
awful.
It's
I hate it,
dreadful.
and I'm so amused that they did it.
We've really got a bit wound up. You can tell Kat and I are suffering from the heat because we are irascible, we have problems, and we
How
are
dare this
sharing them.
1990s TV show not have realistically alien aliens in it?
Okay, we are over an hour, and I think we are part of the way through Act One. We
We've
are
just got to the opening credits. We've done the cold open.
okay. So anyone joining us new, I'm so sorry, but this happens quite often, and it will happen again. We have a lot to say about this show. We are passionate. We love it, and yeah, sorry, this will happen again.
Oh, in chat, the indoor cat says a sensitivity person in 1993 would be like finding a unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get a sensitivity coordinator. We don't get realistic aliens. This is Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. The final line is Hanik turning back to Kira and saying, "You were right. Bajor is not Kentanna." What are we meant to take from this line? Does Hanik really literally believe that Bajor isn't Kentanna? Or is it a rhetorical statement to make Kira feel guilty? And I'm not sure what to make of it, because if it literally isn't Kentanna, if Kentanna is an existent planet which the Skreann are native to, then they've got no reason anymore to choose Bajor. If it's become apparent, if they're not welcomed there, and that means, oh, it can't be our Kentanna after all, then she's no reason to be angry other than her son having just died. But that means that they would want to go and find somewhere else, because that isn't Kentanna. But if Kentanna can be wherever you build it, then Draylon 2 would be as good a Kentanna as anywhere. That line, I think, is meant to have big emotional resonance, but it just undercuts everything that's gone before it. Unless I'm misunderstanding it or missing some interpretation of it that I'm meant to be taking, it just didn't make sense to me.
I can absolutely see what you mean. I think the intention through a lot of muddled script editing is that it was. This whole episode is meant to be more about what you believe than what it is. The Skreans firmly believe, without any actual evidence, that Bajor is Katana. The Bajorans believe, without much beyond the projections, that assimilating the Skreans would be a bad idea. It's all about what you think you can do versus what you actually can do, what you think is right, what's actually right. I think it's meant to leave you with more questions than answers, but it does in such a clumsy way that you actually just end up resenting the fact that it's not really resolved it very neatly, and it's introduced de facto problems to create a situation that could have been resolved much more effectively. Like I said, I think there's a germ of a good idea in here that, with some very mature script writing, could have been brilliant, and instead they just fumble it and just sort of stumble towards this ending, which, as we know, has come down from the exec's office as just like, I want this to end sad. And so we've just got
Rework
this.
some of the earlier parts and take out the bit where they sow seeds of joy on a planet of sorrow, because this might be partly why I'm not kicking back more strongly against the idea that this place has a place in their mythology. This place they've only just discovered is their mythological homeland. Maybe I'm not kicking back against it because I feel that the script ultimately supports it.
Who knows?
And they've
It's not.
rewritten those bits.
They
want
could have.
they want to keep that in so that it's more hard hitting when it's taken away from them.
But it's all you do.
I just feel dissatisfied by it.
I totally get it. I do. I totally get it, because it does feel like they're chasing the emotional impact of, like, it is. It is a powerful line, a powerful final scene of Kira stood in the airlock, utterly bereft that, this decision that she thinks is right for Bajor but is wrong for her friend, is personally very complex and difficult for her to negotiate. In context, it makes no sense at all. None of this does. All of this is just arbitrary decisions that make.
Maybe if there'd been an earlier scene where Kira agreed with her, Bajor could be your Kentanna. It would be amazing if we, who
That
have been through
would
so
be
much, could
great.
offer you a safe place to be. If she'd said that and felt that and then had to walk it back,
Mm-hmm.
that
That
last
would have
scene
been
would have had
brilliant.
more emotional impact, I think. It's possible that they
Mm,
ran out of time to do it
I
because,
think
again, they've
so.
had to fit so much dialogue
You're very
in.
right. I
Yeah, I
will.
think maybe that would have saved it. Maybe that desire, that genuinely felt and expressed desire, rather than a we wish we could but we can't, which is what it ends up coming down to.
I would have loved to have seen like days of agonized analysis by Bashir and Dax, where they run thousands of projections. They assess every aspect of Bajoran culture and Skrean capability, and they're like, there is not one scenario in which Bajoran society can
Mm.
upskill 3 million Skrean refugees into a farming community in sufficient time to address a
But
famine
I think
situation.
But I think to have that balanced with culturally they have sufficient understanding and enough in common that we feel they could work together. Unfortunately, the
Mm.
situation does not.
That would have
Just some things.
hit brilliantly. That would have hit brilliantly. Instead, we've got what feels just like an arbitrary ending. Oh no, sad thing happened, and I'm like, really? Deep Space Nine's given me some of the
It comes down to a
best
personal
episodes.
tragedy rather
That's what
than
it is. That's what it
it
is. You've
takes
got it,
focus away from the story at hand.
Kat. You've got it. They wanted Kira to be sad at the end. That's what they wanted. You've got it. That's exactly what it is. So they've written whatever will work to make Kira sad at the end, even if it makes no sense in the rest of the plot.
Mm.
Chat are saying, it feels shoehorned in. The story fits, but not to the ending.
Yeah, the Indo-Cat very fairly raises they didn't, in terms of the problem of a belief in a homeland, they didn't have the answers then, they don't now, and we probably won't in the future either. That is very fair, but as we said, why raise those questions only to mush the working through of them? It just, yeah, there's a lot in this episode that I really like, but ultimately I just feel so disgruntled and dissatisfied with the way that it plays out.
Agreed.
And there might be some underlying reasons for that. There might be something about the way it plays out, which prods things in me that I don't want to be prodded. But I think it really is just that I don't believe in the arguments that they put forward. It
I
feels like they put forward different arguments initially and then walked them back.
I think it's legitimate to think both. I think you can personally go, I don't like how the story concluded, and you can also, abstractly go, I also don't think this was written well to get to this ending. I think it can be
This is the
both.
question. I'm not a seasoned critic, believe it or not. So my own vibe of, oh, it doesn't feel good, man. It doesn't necessarily point to it being ill written, but I can point to specific things in it that I think are problems that they needed to resolve before putting this to the air.
Yep. I think you are absolutely right on both counts. I think the vibe is off, man. The vibes are harsh, and this is not a great writing example of great writing. I don't know why, but somewhere along the way this went wildly off the rails. And like I said right at the beginning, and I now feel very vindicated. This episode started out brilliantly. It had a good concept, and it really fumbled it more badly towards the end, where it was just disappointing.
Yeah. I still don't hate it as much as Vortex.
That's always going to be. I really hope we never find anything worse, because I don't think I wonder if your enthusiasm for this rewatch for this watch will survive if we ever hit an episode as bad as that.
God. I think the
Oh,
main thing keeping me going is the promise of more Garak and Bashir.
my
And
dear
so
doctor.
plenty of that to come.
Yes, absolutely there is. Absolutely there is. Right. I feel like in that conversation we've addressed kind of our final thoughts on this one. So unless
Yeah,
there's
again,
anything
loads of things that I liked. I like the matriarchalness that's not
I
overplayed,
did.
but is just there as a premise. I love Virani and the whole role that he plays with as a mouthpiece for the Bajoran people, and for Kira wanting to promote his music. Him playing the DS9 theme in World just
What
blows
the
my
fuck?
mind. I love that. There's some really good lines in it. There's some really good ideas. I'm just very disappointed by the meeting with the Bajoran Vedican minister and by the ending of the episode. It wasn't boring. I don't think that it's
No,
badly
it
directed or
wasn't.
made. I think that the
No.
cast acquitted themselves admirably, but I
Like
think that
that.
more thought needed to go into some elements of it.
I think you're absolutely right. It was hamstrung by a bad plot. I will throw in a little bit of trivia. Uh, the minister, Razor?
Rojan.
Rojan was played by Kitty Swink, who is married to Armin Shimmerman.
That's a
So,
great name and a great fact.
so there we go. I just want to acknowledge that. And I liked her that wonderful crown braid effect she had on her hair as well. I thought that was very good, and I liked Vedic Sarad, sorry, who felt like a very political priest, which, as we know, is very much the case on Bajor. He definitely seemed to be there to just be a very smooth political operator, so I liked him as an extra as well. So yes, there were many things to enjoy in this episode. Sadly, it all came together as a very unrealised whole. I'm so sorry, everyone. There we go.
But it gave us a lot to talk about.
Seems we cannot hold back when it's a bad episode, which I don't know what that says
Is this
about
going to be a
us.
thing that the more we
I'm
dislike an
worried.
episode, the longer we
I'm
talk?
actually worried about that. Yeah, I am
Oh,
worried.
gosh. We're going to have to try and plot that at some point. How long it took us to record each episode versus where we would rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. How close is that correlation?
If we ever start an episode of our discussion early, you'll know we did not enjoy that episode. We want extra time just to squeeze all the venom in or out or whatever. Right. It's been a very long run. It is now 2 hours 24 minutes, which is about where we are when we have a lot to say about an episode. But I'm very grateful to everyone for taking part and chat. As always, you've been wonderful communicating with us, and I know the chat room's been a bit unreliable tonight, so thank you for when you did chip in. I'd love to be able to, engage with you even more, um, and we will always do our best to bring you in. As always, we hope to be back in a couple of weeks' time. The next episode is Rivals, which is a Quark episode, so that will be
Yay.
very enjoying, and also an O'Brien and Bashir partnership. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. So we
One
can't
of my
wait.
favourite peaks.
Exactly. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. So we can't wait to get to that. So, as always, we will thank you very much for taking part. I'll put up an edited summary of this episode on YouTube as soon as I actually have the energy and time. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything that I've stopped you from saying, Kat. Any final closing comments?
No, just thank you for bearing with us for this long and in this heat. Hopefully next time it won't be as hot. We'll both be thinking clearly, we will rant less, and we'll have fun. I did have fun today, but it was a very complaining kind of fun.
A very complaining kind of fun is a good source of energy for this podcast. So thank you everyone very much. We will see you all again very soon, and I invite you all to live long and prosper. Good night and farewell.
Take care, everybody.